Hello malt mates, Ralphie here in the Whisky Bothy with review number 1061, which is a highly recommended single malt Scotch whisky from Islay. It's unpeated. There's just a few of the Islay single malts are unpeated. Bruichladdich can be unpeated. Caol Ila, funnily enough, can be unpeated. You do occasionally see unpeated versions. And it's quite an interesting dry style of single malt. But notably, it's Bunnahabhain. This is the cask strength version of the 12-year-old. It has been around for a while. In fact, I'm re-reviewing the 2023 edition, bottled at 60.1%, and I have in fact reviewed this, a similar bottle actually, back in review number 1030, which you'll find in the archives by just doing a little box search. At which point I gave it a generous mark of 87 out of 100, which is very generous actually at this moment in time with the marks I'm giving, but obviously I must have been onto something then, because this whisky has won the accolade as the best single malt whisky in Scotland 2024 in the online Scotch Whisky Awards, the OSWAs. And the OSWAs, of course, are run as a purely online-based democratic process. And I tell you what, whisky enthusiasts can't be wrong. There must be something in this. I want to smell it, taste it, tell a little bit about it, and give you a take on why I absolutely concur and agree with the whisky enthusiasts in the online community. Hi folks, hello malt mates. That this is a very worthy winner of that accolade. You may be interested to note that I'm not reviewing all the OSWA winners this year. I'm just taking 3 examples. So I'll have a look at a sample from an independent bottler, this year's independent bottler winner, and something else that I haven't quite made up my mind about, but I'm onto it. Bear with me. So, what have we got here? The thing about Bunnahabhain is they've got big warehouses. They have been, in many senses, overproducing single malt long before it suddenly became a fashion in the early 2000s to start building up the warehouse stock. So Bunnahabhain have got a huge catalogue in their warehouses of all sorts of casks, all different ages, and much of what they're maturing is in a more traditional style of ex-sherry cask. And you notice that what they produce isn't necessarily a out-and-out sherry monster, but it definitely has that sherry influence going on, which is prominent and noticeable. And it really suits the rich maltiness of the still signature coming from Bunnahabhain, which is a typical feature, that malt richness that you'll find right down the west coast of Scotland, both on the mainland and in the islands lying to the west of Scottish mainland. You'll find it prominently in Ben Nevis, very prominent. You'll find it in Isle of Jura, absolutely. You'll find it in Bowmore when they're getting things right. But let's start with the smell here. The first thing that strikes me is that for 60.1% alcohol, I'm getting a very clean, fresh, non-nippy nose. Honestly, you're smelling this whiskey and you have very little idea of how strong it is, how physically strong it is in terms of alcohol. Because essentially this is concentrated compared to your average blended Scotch, which is bottled at 40%. This is 60.1, so it's almost as if they've stuck a bottle and a half into one bottle, and just simply, instead of water, you've got more alcohol. And of course more alcohol is great because it holds the flavour. It holds not just the volume of flavour, but the complexity. And so when we pour a glass and we give it time and we add a drop of water, we start to reduce the strength of the alcohol. And as we do so, all the flavours that are locked up in the initial bottling strength of the alcohol start to release. If, of course, you buy a 40% whisky, a lot of the complexity is already gone. It's vaporised at the bottling plant because you simply get less alcohol to carry the experience, which, don't get me wrong, suits the palate of the contemporary passive consumer, because they're not looking to have frightening flavours coming out of their whisky. It's for the likes of you and I, malt mates, experienced whisky drinkers. We're up for the challenge, and furthermore, because of our experience and our investment of time and effort learning about whisky, we get rewarded. So back to the nose. There's almost initially a cream soda note, a slight sherried cream soda, soft vanilla, icing sugar, mild, slight chocolatiness, milk chocolatiness. The sherry note, crisp raisin complex, slightly gingery, slightly floral and fragrant. This is complex on the nose, and one reason for that is because the strength of the alcohol in the bottle is delivering it. So you're getting concentrated Scotch whisky. That's the best way to describe it. Excuse me. Here we go. I thought you were away. Excuse me, I won't be a minute. This happens regularly. You're sticking your bottom into the camera and frightening my viewers, you bamstick. You're very naughty, and you've completely disrupted me, Billy. If I give you treats, if I bribe you, right, and I shouldn't be doing this, will you just go back to chasing your mice? Please. Where was it? Yeah, I'd just taken a sip, and I was about to tell you how rich, intense and locked up the flavours are. There's no way, if you're sipping this neat, you're going to get anywhere near the access to the complexity and the sheer concentration of complex flavours that are going on in this whisky. You've got to give them time to unravel, and adding a drop of water will do that. Now, I add a lot of water because that suits my palate, but you don't need to add much. Literally, you could get your teaspoon out, the 5mm teaspoon, and you could add a couple of drops. That's all you need to do, a couple of drops, just to get you started. Thereafter, if you feel you need more water, you can add more water. And if you don't, you won't. Simples. Already, although I've tasted this whisky now for about half a dozen times over the last couple of weeks, I'm really warming to this. It's got substantial character, it's really well made malt, and importantly, the casks are good. They're really good. They're proper, crisp, fresh, breezy, slightly iodine-y, traditional sherry casks. You're not getting hot wood, and you know what I'm talking about if you bought a bottle of Macallan recently. That hot wood thing, that green wood astringency, that slightly off mint note that you get. You're not getting that here. It's such a well-deserved winner for the title Whisky of the Year. It's the first win that Bunnahabhain have had in the 4 years of the online Scotch Whisky Awards, And with this bottling, it's very well deserved. Indeed it is. I've added a drop of water. Let's go back to the smell and taste before I start to wander off with a bit more Bunnahabhain backstory. I remember buying this in a bar in the 1980s, 1986, when I lived in Glasgow in a place called Partick. And even at 40%, the standard 12-year-old 40% chill filtered whisky, even then, I thought it was something special. I just really enjoyed the character. That's what it is, the character of this. And I have to say, 85, 95, 2005, 2015, 85 to 95, 95 to 2005, 2005, 2015, so 40 years later. Good, I got there. 40 years later, I can still taste what I tasted back in that bar all that time ago. It's just a slightly weird experience to have the accuracy of that timeline, but that's what bottled spirits does. That's part of the fascination. Now, I've given this a few minutes in the glass. A wee drop of water added. Where are we going with this? The sherry influence is opening up. It's crisper. There's fruitiness in there. There's a little back note of apricot. I'm noticing a drop of banana, soft banana, in the background. And there's a sweetness to the nature of this. I'm not getting a lot of sour and I'm not getting a lot of bitter, but what I am getting is the combination of grain, soft grain savoury, and a bolder cask savoury note, the cask umami coming through from the sherry casks, which is so, so important to the Bunnahabhain signature. Flavour-wise, even adding such little water, you're getting a transformation here. I'm getting ginger cake with butter on it. Now, I don't find that very often in whisky. So where's the butter coming from? Well, there's a butyric compound as part of the profile of whisky. It usually manifests as a soft vanilla or cereal vanilla note, but here it's actually almost buttery. It's fascinating. I'm going to add a bit more water now. I'm also noticing, by the way, there's an emergence of another fruit flavour, so that the dominance and the signature being set by the sherry presence, balanced sherry presence, and quality there too, with the maltiness, the slightly chocolate maltiness, milk chocolate, slightly fudgy, slightly toffee note. There's another fresher fruit complexity coming in. The banana tends to kind of settle down a little bit. It remains in the background, but a hint of marzipan. There's a slight soft amaretto note in the background, and also I'm starting to notice some what you call Japanese plum or plum wine note coming through. Complex, subtle, discreet, but it's definitely there, and it grows, and it starts to provide an interesting parallel narrative to the story that when the glass is expressing itself over time. So, despite its youthfulness of being 12 years, there's a lot of complexity in this whisky, and the complexity is being delivered not by the usual notes of old cask, leather book chairs, old armchairs and pipe smoke and tobaccos and all these kind of tobacco-y notes. It's something younger and fresher and really lively and delightful. This isn't a monster whisky. It's a very elegant friendly whisky delivered at monster strength. And it's interesting to note that when we were interviewing on the online Scotch Whisky Awards live stream, the lovely lady who blends and prepares these whiskies, she did mention that you don't just use the same recipe in the same casks as you do for the 46-year-old, but leave the strength higher. You don't do that. You actually need a different recipe. And when I'm tasting this, I'm totally getting it now. I can see it. Because many people don't even add water to cask strength whisky. And they'll taste too much. And therefore, to be successful, you've got to have that fullness and richness of flavour so as to offset the burn of the nip that you would get from a less matured whisky in less active casks that was more rapidly manufactured. You know, the usual signs, the usual telltales. But this is just, you know, I've got to just say, congratulations, Bunnahabhain. Job done. So well. And here's me buying my second bottle in 6 months? When you've got this quality of whisky, it's just easier to spend your money. Cheers. Time for a malt mark. The nose will keep you going, particularly if you understand sherry influence, quality sherry influence. The nose will keep you going for hours. The taste, clean, crisp, sweet, fresh, delicious, complex, sour. Almost sherbety at times. Cola notes coming in. Then that kind of Japanese plum note. Then the sort of crystallised apricot. That little marzipan rummaging around the background, intermingled with the chocolatiness and the toffee, the soft toffee, caramel chew type toffee. Wonderful. Last time I reviewed this, I gave it 87. And out of respect for it, I was thinking initially 86, but no. This retails for £80 a bottle. It's not as if they rushed out to charge us £100. Now that translates, by the way, as about $98. And you might find some ruthless retailers try and pump it up to $125 or $150 even. But no, in the UK, and this is where I bought it, so this is where I can really comment accurately. £80 for this is well worth the price for the quality of whisky you're getting. 87, again, out of 100. It's a malt mark. Well done, Bunnahabhain. Worthy winner in the 2024 Online Scotch Whisky Awards. And thank you, malt mates, for joining me at the fireside. I put the heater on today, I had to. And I'm getting a lovely heat here. I'm burning, funnily enough, some old whisky bottle boxes. Because, you know, actually, what else do you do with them? But that will be the subject of my next video, which will be 1061 extras. What do we do with whisky containers? This is a topic well worth discussing, and particularly bringing to the attention of the whisky makers, because we're starting to get a little bit irritated with excessive, wasteful packaging. More about that shortly. Where's my Clivey clicker? Oh, here it is. Time to go.